It says something like,
well, it's on now. It's streaming. So hello, welcome to people live on the streaming service. And it's setting it up. And then I'm going to let that do. And I'm going to press the recording here as well. If I go, come on, press the button. Where's the button?
This is recording in progress.
Yeah.
Riveting content.
Let's do it. Let's admit all two people who are going to join us. It's great. Ding dong. Hello, hello. Welcome to this month's episode of the ABC Staff Picks and dun, 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 the grand finale of the first season. It's good fun to do seasons, actually. I'm just checking that.
It sounds so legit.
We're legit, man. So we're here for 30 minutes, probably 45 by the time we finish this. And we're here with, well, I'm Luke. ABC Zoom is Luke. And we've got Iris, a colleague of mine at ABC. And this week, we're also joined by Matthew Clark Davison, all the way from America, from Oakland in California, to talk about his book and also a couple of recommendations from his side as well. So we're spanning the world. I'm just checking that that we are actually streaming. It looks like it. Yes, we're not dreaming. We're streaming. Oh, it's good. Oh, I know, terrible. Yeah. I'm a songwriter. Good Lord. So I'm gonna throw it over to Iris first. Iris, give us your first recommendation. Let's get straight into it.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau because the author was on this very show on the second episode, I think. And she talked about her book, and I think all of us were like, oh, that sounds pretty good, actually. That sounds kind of like a very good summary read. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to give it a go. And if I don't like it, she'll never hear about it. But I actually did like it. It's a really fun, enjoyable summary book. I don't want to like go into the plot too much because obviously she already talked about that when she was on the show, but it's just, it's a very nice, easy read, but it also does touch on some more serious topics. It's not all like easy breezy. It's just really nice. It's really one of those reads where it feels like very comfortable and like very warm. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's just, it was really fun.
Kind of like how she was, actually. She was warm.
She was very nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm really glad that she actually wrote a nice book.
As
you never
well.
know, you know? Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you can put the title and the author actually in the chat box, because then people can see that too. That's kind of cool. And then later on, I should also our website.
Yeah. It should also be. It probably already is in your list, the staff picks list on our website. The highlight.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I don't actually see it here.
Well, I'll add it later.
But maybe I'm overlooking it. But
to be fair, I didn't check. I just assumed that it would already be in there because we already talked about it, but I didn't actually.
It looks like somebody's been cleaning things up, actually, because I see there's not all of the books that we had in there before.
Well, there's a max. Anyway. There's a max. So maybe and then it randomizes every time you refresh the page. So maybe that's what's happening. Maybe we're at the max.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
So tip of the day is refresh your website when you get onto the. In fact, talking of this, instead of talking about it, let me just share my screen and I'll show people what it looks like. Let's see, desktop. How we'll do it here. Share, Sunny and share. So you can see it now. Okay. So this is the ABC highlights from the ABC website, and the way you get to it, when you land on abc.nl, you get this lovely page. And then if you go to books, which is in the top left-hand corner, my computer's a bit slow today. And then if you go
maybe that's because you have a billion tabs open, Luke.
Who has a billion tabs open?
It's very stressful. God.
Highlights by collection. Here we go. And you can see ABC Star Picks 2021 here. So that's the list of all of the books that we're talking about, or have talked about, actually, and things like that. So you can find all the list of our groovy books that we're talking about today and the previous ones we've talked about. So that's that. my screen sharing's paused. Oh, that's intriguing. I'm gonna have to do that later. See what happens. Anyway, you saw that now.
Yes.
So I'm going to mention a title because I've been walking around the shop and asking colleagues, because this is all about staff peaks, and let's see what I can find. Oh yeah, there was one from Jitse. He was on the first floor with me in the ABC in the Amsterdam shop, and he had a title called Number 5. Volume 1, which is kind of confusing because it's like, isn't it volume 5? But it's not. It's called Number 5, but it's volume 1. A graphic novel, which is a really fun, it's a really great sort of new way of, I see it relatively new anyway, in the last 10, 20 years of telling stories. And it's by Taiyo Matsumoto, if I can say it right. And his why not indeed. His reasoning for choosing it was that he liked the style of it, which was kind of like French style, which reminded me when I saw it also of like bande dessinée, which the French have a hell of a lot of course, and some of it's come over to the English language or in other languages, but not like Tintin, which most people know, but slightly more grown up, I would say. Interesting style of it. I do like it. And he said the second reason he liked it was that the storyline was about a sort of a motley crew of non-superhero misfit kind of people.
Oh, that does sound nice.
Which, yeah, it's been done a few times now more recently, but it gets away indeed from the Americanized superhero idea and gets like normal people doing crazy stuff, but going further with it. Yeah. So being volume 1, there's bound to be volume 2, 3, blah blah. So you can find that on in the graphic novel section on the first floor in the ABC Amsterdam, and in The Hague it's on the ground floor because they only have the ground floor, don't they?
More or less, yeah.
More or less. You have a little first floor.
Yes.
But not a large first floor like we do.
No.
There you go. I'll search that one out and I'll put that on the screen as well in a minute. But it looked nice and intriguing. And now for that piece in the show where we invite Matthew to join us, audially as well as visually. From your great loft there in California. Hello, Matthew.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Good morning. Well, for you, it's good morning. For us, it's good afternoon.
It's good. It's good mid-morning.
Good mid.
Wow.
In California, yeah.
And you're here because you have a book which you wrote to us, and we were going to try and put something together for the Amsterdam. What's the week called this week? It's the
Pride, maybe.
Pride Week. That's it. I was
Pride Week, yeah.
National Week, but yeah, Pride Week. But because of Corona and because of other various things, we couldn't get it done. But we invited you to come and talk about your book here, which is very nice. You gladly wanted to join us, so that's great. So the book called Doubting Thomas. Tell us what it's about a bit.
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to. I first just want to tell you a couple of other things. And one is that I love booksellers so much. I've been to your store, and my friend Mika Erkens, who's a Dutch-American writer, suggested that I reach out to you because I was planning on being in Amsterdam this week. Not coincidentally for Pride. I mean, I'm still gay here in Oakland, California, even though I'm not in Amsterdam for Pride Week. But she thought that might be a really good idea, and so I was happy to reach out. This is my book, Doubting Thomas. It's a novel that I started during the first of the 2 Obama administrations in the United States, when sort of this idea of liberalism, because there was a Black president and because gay marriage was starting to become legalized in state after state, I was sort of sensing that some people were thinking on the liberal side that our struggles were over. And this coincided with a couple of other things that were happening in my life. And I'll tell you about those in just one second. But I also just have to say that for me and our press, the press that signed me to publish this book, we completely depend on independent booksellers like you. giving writers like me an opportunity like this in order to spread the word, because there just isn't a budget for publicity in the same way that there might be for some of the bigger publishers. So I love and appreciate you both so much, and all of the people that work in your store. Seriously, like I've had some incredible booksellers. I was lucky to get good people like Michael Cunningham and Packer and T. Kira Madden and other wonderful writers to read the book. I didn't know them, and they read it. I should say I knew some of them, but didn't know others, and they read it, and they said some nice things about it. So I think I got a toe in the door, but it's really independent booksellers that have been the folks that have helped me spread the word about Doubting Thomas. So thank you. So anyway, I am one of three brothers. Pardon me. And I left home at such a young age. I was 15 years old when I left home. I came from a kind of a troubled background, and I moved to San Francisco, California, and landed there and was able to sort of be myself in a way that I couldn't be in the hometown that I left. And then, what ended up happening was that I was really there in the midst of the AIDS pandemic. And there's this wonderful writer who wrote Hedwig and the Angry Inch, John Cameron Michael, who has a project. It's sort of a hybrid project podcast called Anthem Homunculus. And he started this podcast as what he calls an alternative biography, where he wanted to imagine what his life may have been like had he not left the small town that he had grown up in.
Wow.
And I was thinking at something similar, although I couldn't have articulated it, about this book. And that was like, what would have happened to me had I been able to kind of pass or assimilate in such a way in the town and in the place? I was born in 1970. So at the time, in the town and the place, where I could have gotten away with being in the closet. My mom said that, I came out of her womb wearing a pair of high heels and a pearl necklace. So, I never was really very good at pretending that I wasn't gay, but I wanted to imagine that. And I also have two brothers, and I'm fascinated by what it must be like for them as well.
Are they straight or gay?
They both are married to women and have kids, so they're more traditional. But I just wonder, like my mom, my younger brother's joke is that every time the phone rang at a certain point in our family, somebody was coming out of the closet, because my mom was with a woman for several years after her marriage to my dad. And, we have nieces and stuff, and we're all over the spectrum. But
right.
But yes, like they were very much, they grew up sort of reinforcing more stereotypical expectations around what it means to be a boy in this country at that time. And I couldn't fit into a single one of them. And so I was interested in that from their perspective. And then also in this sort of like liberal moment, I was seeing sort of things that were beneath the surface that were happening. And one of them was that I had witnessed a guy who was a sweet, wonderful person, very, very liberal, who had witnessed a out gay teacher touch a fourth grader's shoulders as he was visiting a classroom. And he said to the administrator that the teacher had touched the kid inappropriately. And thank goodness the administrator had really understood, like, knew the right questions to ask, because I went from sort of being terrified for the kid, thinking that there was something that I didn't see, to then being terrified for the teacher, to then being terrified for all of the victims that actually have stuff happen to them that don't get believed, because this conflation of out gay people and child molestations that happen in a lot of people's mind where that isn't. So the novel Doubting Thomas starts with an out gay, very socially appropriate teacher who doesn't make it too hard for other people who aren't gay to accept him, gets accused of inappropriately touching one of his students. And even though he's found innocent, the very liberal community where he is part of the community decides that they ask him to resign. And that thrusts him back into his family life in a way, and specifically with his brothers in a way, that makes Thomas have to reevaluate every choice he's ever made. So that's the basic, very long-winded setup for Doubting Thomas.
Yeah. Very, it's Well, sort of, I suppose, yeah, as you say, based it sort of somewhat in your life, and obviously in the sphere of what you've grown up in. But we've seen it in the shop where there's more and more books of people writing their experiences or writing about different groups, LGBT plus concepts and things like that. It becomes, well, gratifyingly, I don't know if it's normal yet, but it's become more and more that people can find books that they can relate to, like this, where there's the subject matter is there, that it's not just for people to learn about. Someone like me, who's just straight white, normal middle class kind of guy, where I kind of go, really, that goes on, where for me it's like discovering. But hopefully it's also for people who are in those sectors, either gay or in somewhere or another, that they can actually relate to it. So that's really cool.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I teach at San Francisco State University in their creative writing program, and what's come to the surface is that sadly, there's still a long way to go. There is certainly so much more than when I was their age. And it was when I was a kid too. It was just like I was literally going to like the medical part of the library to try to find out something about myself in a way that I could talk about in my neighborhood or my church or my school or whatever, because of the social consequences.
Yeah.
And so I was, and so the thought of being able to go to a librarian or a bookstore and sort of saying, hey, do you have anything that might be about, gay people in Obama's first term in America, them actually having something, A, or B, having more than one thing, is absolute mark of progress of the very, very hard work that the writers that came before me that fought their way into the publishing industry against unbelievable obstacles of homophobia, and really the ways in which all historically marginalized communities, and I would also just include women in this too, is not being taken as seriously. And so, or sort of saying, oh, we did a gay book this year.
Yes.
Filled our quota.
Yeah, we already did one. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Those kinds of things. So I'm thrilled that has happened, but I think that there's still a super long way to go. And my publisher was very intentional about having the publication date come out in June. But I would just love it if I could have, before I die, a book launch come out where we didn't need to like use Pride as the month in order to get any kind of publicity, and rather that people might read the book and see whether or not it's, I don't know, compelling or artistic.
Yeah.
And, well written.
Isn't that something which it's something which when it's I don't know how to describe it, a minority thing or something that's coming up, to begin with, it needs attention to say what it is in a way, and at a certain point it needs to be just accepted in society, and then it becomes just the attention goes away from it, as it were, because it becomes just part of the normal society, which is what you're saying you want, which is what I think we all want here. It becomes, you can release it any time of the year. It doesn't have to be pushed by Pride, for example. It's just a book, and it has a certain theme, and it touches you whether you're straight or gay or whatever genre you have to be in, or not genre, sexual orientation you have to be in, that it just is a good book, is what I think you're saying. And I think that will come. I think it's actually happening on with certain books. We've had book discussions before here about books that cover those subjects. Quite. We had it. Do you remember, Iris, when we had Natalia here? And there were a couple of books we talked about, and I can't remember the name of them right now, but. And they were for young adults, because the growing in our shop, we see the young adult section is exploding, and those are stories about young girls in love, young guys in love, young girls in love with young girls, or or guys with guys, or cis. I don't pretend to understand all the different.
Yeah, you're doing really well, Luke.
Thank you. I'm trying my best, but but they're there and they're also being picked up, and it's filling that gap of people resonating, actually.
Yeah, I think it also shows that there is a huge difference if you look at the YA section and then you look at the general fiction section. There's just a huge difference in how normalized it is for young people to read about queer people, and the sort of older generation who tend to read more or like who tend to read less YA also aren't exposed to it as much, because there just aren't that many general fiction books about it as there are YA books. And then you get into this vicious cycle of, well, you're not exposed to it, so then you don't get used to it, so then you don't go looking for it, and then also people don't really want to publish it because they think that no one wants to read it, and it's this cycle that's so hard to break. But
I think
you see that in YA it's hugely successful.
Yeah,
there's definitely people who want to read it.
Yeah, and I think that those people, when they grow up, this is where it's going to take maybe 10, 20 years, where it just becomes, the people who are in their 40s in 20 years' time are just going to be going to be accepting that this is written in normal fiction, not just in.
I really hope so.
Yeah, the irony of it all is that whether or not it's a person who identifies as a person of color, or whether or not they identify as on, non-gender conforming or on the trans spectrum, or storytelling is universal. And I've never once, I remember when I read Marilynne Robinson's Gilead. It's one of my favorite books, and stylistically it was one that I really imitated for my own book. I wouldn't say I imitated it, but it was like I had been working on a project that was really highly kind of poetic and drawing attention to the language in such a way, and I was really wanting to see what I could do with just a very plain, straightforward sentence. And I feel like the profound effect that Marilynne Robinson's Gilead had on me was so surprising. I read it because I had to. It was like a work situation that made me read it, because a letter to a son from an old Christian guy that was about to die. I was just like, the book jacket description didn't sound exactly like something that I felt like I needed to read. But then it was an incredible story. And I think about it, all of the stories that I've read, I don't necessarily think about oh, this is an X story, or this is a Y story, or a Z story. I think, oh, wow, this story really pulled me in. This story captivated me. This story took me away from whatever the struggles are of my daily life and gave me an opportunity to sort of think and feel important feelings and or reconsider stuff that I hadn't before in my life. And I would love to get to a point where we could absolutely 100% talk about whatever it is that the identity markers might be of the characters in the book. But in the same way that we can for, say, a family story written about a more traditional, quote unquote, family in one place versus another, where it's not about being like, my mom has a funny joke. She's like, the book is gay. I didn't know that books could do that. But it's just like I think that if you could talk about the subject matter without without it having to be you know what I mean, because I don't think that we shouldn't talk about the particulars. I think that's fine. I just think it would be wonderful if we could just talk about the craft and the story itself and what it does to the reader.
Yeah, I think though that actually is something specific that books has and does in a very specific way, actually. Maybe TV shows, now with Netflix, there's more range of styles of books, of films, of TV shows. But books, because you're doing it kind of on your own, you're not watching it, you're not sharing it you share it afterwards with people, but it's a very, book lovers are a very specific type of people.
Yeah.
And it's allowing it into your space. And like you said, I think basically people want a good story and want to be touched by it, and they don't really give a shit of who and how and really, unfortunately that seems to play more out in how you sell it than how you read it. But then you're getting into, how do you sell a book? You could sell your book and not sell it, just sell it as a book, as a fiction book, which I think is what you're doing. But really, it's like the stretch over. You don't, like you said, it shouldn't really be linked to pride necessarily in a way. Anyway, it's just a gripping story of onbegrip. What's that in English? Non-understanding from a small society, basically. Makes me think of a classic book from 100 years ago doing the same thing. It's always about being, what am I thinking of now? Oh, my memory is the worst memory in the world.
Oh,
But
no.
It's
You're
always
tied
about,
for first place then. But if you give me a couple of hints, I might be able to.
Yeah.
oh my God. It's let me
This
come
is
back.
promising.
Let me come back on it. I'm going to try.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna ask you actually, what was your book review book? Toevallig. Do you have one?
Okay, so I've changed my mind just because I want to. I want to give a content warning that this book contains heterosexuality.
Oh, ew.
I'm not sure we're going to let you carry on with this.
Actually, this book, I have a quote from this book in my book. It's a really strange book called Diary of a Bad Year by Coetzee. And he has much more famous titles, but it's a love story between, he becomes obsessed. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about this book one way or another. But the main character the fictionalized main character in the story is a writer. And he becomes obsessed with his downstairs neighbor while he's trying to complete this project that's supposed to be about his political thing. So even the way that the pages are divided in the book is a formal experiment where part of the story, that one story is being told above the line, and then there's another story that's being told below the line.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and he said something really interesting that I thought was relevant for my book in this book, and so I quoted it. So this is one book that I think is highly interesting. And then, just quickly, I'll say that this small, skinny, wonderful book, We the Animals by Justin Torres, was a huge inspiration for me because it's about a trio of brothers. It's also very different stylistically from my book because it's so beautifully poetic. And, I hope that I have some cool images and whatever in my novel, but I wasn't attempting it for it to be like condensed almost prose poetry, whereas this book is, and it has a wonderful, wonderful effect. But having nothing to do with anything with me, the book that I would really highly recommend is The Saltfields by Stacey Flood. It's a novella, and it's by a smaller independent publisher, and it's so interesting. It talks about a man who takes this train trip, this man in this tiny little space. This man reevaluates his entire life. Ooh. But it really mostly takes place on a train trip, and it really does have to do with thematic concerns of family, of loss, of grief, which I think are those things make me happy. Mm-hmm. But the main character is leaving South Carolina on a plane, and there's ghosts in it, and it really also illuminates without really being didactic in any way, shape, or form some of the very compelling aspects of anti-Black racism in America. So I feel like one can glean and learn a lot from this book while also being completely in love with the characters. This would be my has nothing to do with me recommendation. Other than I do know the author, and he's a wonderful person.
Okay,
that's a good one as well. Okay,
I've been on a bit of a novella binge lately, so I might have to give that one a go.
I hope you do. I think that you'll find it really worth your while.
Sounds very interesting.
Saltfields, huh? It's called Saltfields?
Yes.
Yeah,
Saltfields.
Yeah. I've got it here. I'm going to just, So
add it to the list, Luke.
I'm going to add it to the list. This is all these books that Matthew's giving recommendations for. We're going to throw on the ABC staff picks list as well, so you'll be able to find them back there. I guess I'll put abc.nl in the chat box, then you can see where you can find that. Yeah. Matthew, thank you. I like this. If you've got another one later on, then you can give us more or more feedback. I'm going to throw it over to Iris.
Oh, Lord.
Iris, we were talking before about how people can find us and follow us at the American Book Center. And I was going to show the website, which I did just before.
That's true.
But you were going to talk about subscriptions and email subscriptions. And
yes, because we have a news mailing that you can subscribe to on our homepage, and then you get, I think it's about once a month. It's not entirely like set in stone. And then you get a great email in your inbox with all kinds of interesting stuff that is going on in ABC land. And then we also have our events mailing, which is great if you want to stay up to date. There it is. You want to stay up to date about what kind of events we're organizing. And especially currently, most of our events are happening online. So you don't have to, oh my God, my email here. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to, leave the house. You can just enjoy our events from the comfort of your own couch. But then at least, you'll know what's going on. I've also been getting a lot of questions in the store about when we're going to start up our trade-in days again for secondhand books. So if you want to know about that, subscribe to our events mailing and you will be kept up to date.
And I'm going to show you whilst we're here, we'll see at the top you've got events.
Yes.
And then you can see, because the trade-in day should turn up on the events page when it comes up. They should indeed. There you go. So that's us being the staff picks tonight, and then we've got book chats going on in the middle of August, and the open mic, which I do as well. That happens once a month at the beginning of every month. We're having a summer off as of next week, but the next one's September the 3rd, and then we've got an evening with Megan Rosenblum, Dark Archives, which scares the freak out of me.
Yeah.
But apparently people really like it, which is it's about bookmaking, which is that doesn't freak me out, but
no, that sounds very innocent.
Then they use bound in human skin, and then I was like, what is going on here? But Iris, you see the enjoyment of this, don't you?
It's very morbidly fascinating. Like, it grosses me out to no end, but also I kind of want to know. I want to know more about it.
Yeah. So apparently more people do as well. Yeah. So that's September the 17th. So put that in your diaries.
Or don't and subscribe to our events mailing.
There you go. Good reason too. Indeed.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I was just feeding you the line.
Yeah, great. Well done.
That's the way it works. Cool. Okay. That's how you can get hold of us. In fact, another thing I actually wanted to show you there, we were talking just now with Matthew about these, I would say new types of books that are coming out for trying to, or reaching out to people who are in a new state of their sexual awareness, if I can put it like that.
Sure.
So we've found Book Talk. TikTok. I want to talk about TikTok. In the last couple of months, we've had inundated by primarily young people, young women mostly, who are looking for the same book. And we're going, where did this come from? And apparently on TikTok, which is kind of like Facebook for young people, if you like.
It's not like Facebook at all, Luke. Come on.
No, I'm describing it for people who wouldn't know what TikTok. How would you describe it?
Well, it's a social media platform that I guess is similar to probably most similar to like Snapchat or Instagram stories, where people make little videos that they share and that you can then follow people and watch their little videos. And it's like every social media platform. I mean, YouTube has BookTube, Instagram has Bookstagram. There's a bookish corner everywhere. So unsurprisingly, TikTok now has Book Talk, where young people talk about books that they like and that they've read. And it's being credited as like this, it's responsible for bringing reading back to young people, which I don't think is completely fair, but that's fine.
Well, for this year, anyway.
It's people are discovering books, and because TikTok is so big and because it's so I don't know, it's just so popular worldwide, a lot of people come in asking for the same book. So it's been really hard to keep The Song of Achilles on the shelves, for example, or They Both Die at the End has been sold out for like 2 months, stuff like that.
It's been crazy. Yeah. I mean, we've been hit, of course, with the double bubble of people coming back to the shop in their drones, being allowed to, post COVID version 2, as it were. And Book Talk suddenly kind of raising its head. So trying to keep the books in stock has been really difficult. But Book Talk, I was just going to show you the share my screen again.
Oh, because there's a list, right? We've got a list for everything.
Oh yeah. So by subjects again, and you'll find it under no, not by subjects. Close the subjects.
No, it's under collection.
Highlights by collection, indeed. Book Talk, and then you've got these books, and they're flying off the shelf. It's crazy. Both at the end is what you said. Red, White, and Royal Blue, Son of Achilles, Thorns and Roses, and that's bizarre. So that's one of the trends that's been going on in the last within 6 months, really. Three months maybe.
It just really blossomed. What I do like in sort of a very self-congratulatory kind of way is that a lot of the titles that are on there that are now so popular are also ABC favorites. It's like, oh, we picked a good one. It feels nice that that they were already on the list before they exploded, sort of.
So we feel like we
feel good about ourselves.
A bit of a nose for these things. That's good. Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting thing to keep an eye on, to see what the latest things are. Iris, you've got some more summer reads, I think.
Yes.
Which I picked up on this week, but you've actually read it. So go ahead, tell us.
Nice. Yeah, because I talked about this one as a summer read, and then because I remember when we had the author on, we all kind of said, oh, that's sort of sounds like Daisy Jones and the Six a little bit, because it's like summery and there's like music. And then the author of Daisy Jones and the Six, Taylor Jenkins Reid, came out with this book, which looks so good. Oh, it's so pretty. The colors, I love it. Anyway, I read this and it's really good. Unsurprisingly, it's a really good book. It's about this group of siblings, 4 siblings, who have a very famous father who's not really in their lives, but like his fame sort of gives them a lot of fame as well, I guess. And it's set in the 80s, and it's like one day. It's this huge long day because they have a huge summer party every year, and it's the day of the party. But there's also flashbacks to basically their entire lives, starting in like the 50s and with their parents and how they met and kind of their story and, what happened. And it ends with a bit of a bang. It's just a really good book. It's really hard to talk about without giving anything away, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you set the scene well. I picked it up this week and I looked at it, and I was attracted to Daisy Jones and the what's it called? Daisy Jones and the bloody
The Six.
The Six, that's it, The Six. I like 60s, 70s kind of things. 80s being brought up kind of in the 80s too. I was a bit like, this is a bit naff decade, but that's my personal point of view. So when I saw that it was kind of set in the early 80s, I was a bit put off just because of my own personal thing. But the way you describe it makes me think, oh, okay, this might actually be a good read. Yeah,
it sort of flashes back and forth between their childhood and growing up, without having a lot of money, and just sort of how they managed. And then the day of the party, because now they're all like in their 20s and they're hugely successful and very wealthy, and sort of the contrast between that and like, what does that do to you? And, are they actually happy? And that sort of, the contrast between that is really interesting, I thought.
I wondered too, just based on your description, whether or not the author may have been inspired by Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, because of the party, all that takes place on one day.
Yeah.
And setting a whole novel within the course of 24 hours.
Possibly. Yeah. It's like, because it goes back and forth quite a bit, but it starts with, let me show you, part 1, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then you get that, and you get all the flashbacks, and then you get part 2 that is basically the other half of the day where all the action happens. I don't want to spoil anything.
But also the author, Jenkins Reid, has written, I think, 3 books now, Because there's
Yeah,
also
there's one, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I think that's the title.
Yeah, and that's
I'm
also
I'm always confused because there's also a book by a completely different author that's called The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and I always confuse the two. But
I was going to say,
they're
isn't it the same
totally
killing?
different
But
books. No, yeah,
no,
no, it's
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, I haven't read that one, but I've heard good things.
Yeah, so she yeah, the author's been quite prolific actually, because the first one came out only 2 or 3 years ago, I think. So suddenly it's like woof, and good books to read as well. So if you like the one, getting into the other ones.
I don't know about that one, but Daisy Jones and this one are both very summary books. Daisy Jones is about like the music industry and a band, and it's also because it's written in like an interview format, so it's a super quick read as well, which is nice when you're like out somewhere, or when you're sitting in the garden and you don't want to have like this huge big chunky book that you're like taking a week to read. You know, you just want to breeze through it.
I want to write a book called Chunky Book.
Chunky.
Maybe have a called Chunky Book. Chunky Book. Or maybe a dog, I don't know, something like that. Anyway, I've got. Thank you. I'm gonna give another shout out for another book that Max, Big Max. We've got 2 Maxes in the shop. We've got Little Max, who's only, I don't know, 2 meters long. And we've got Big Max, who's 2 meters 50.
They're both quite tall. It's just that one is huge.
Yes, they're both Dutch, so they're both tall.
Maximax.
Anyway, Big Max. Maxima is the music man. He has a huge record collection himself, and he looks after the music section. And there are different books. There are actually quite a few books coming out now from lesser known.
Some amazing Echo and the Bunnymen. Also, Sinead O'Connor has a book. I saw it on your website.
Yes,
I don't know if either of you have read it. Speaking of 80s and.
I was talking about it with my girlfriend yesterday, and she was saying how she connected with her, and I was saying I don't connect with her really. Yeah. I'm not sure. Again, it's a book that I think I would read if I just wanted to see what her story was, but I don't resonate with her particularly. She has trials and tribulations in her life for sure, but it doesn't hit me. But yeah, it's in the shop anyway. So if you're a Sinead O'Connor lover or interested in her book, that's out indeed. It's called Remembering. So there's 2 for you there, Matthew. We'll get down to the shop. You come over soon. And there's another one about Tupac, which is actually, it's called Oral Changes. Oral Changes. Actually, different people, also not known people, but people in the music industry who worked with him. So again, it's not my style, but I thought it was an interesting to have a book about him from people who worked in the industry with him, rather than just, other rappers or people on the street, but, the actual industry side of it. Because I get the feeling he was a clever guy as well, and knew where he wanted to go, and got caught short, of course, unfortunately. But the one book I actually did like, both Max and I liked, and this is the one he actually wanted to recommend, was called Long Players. And it's the favorite album of various famous people, but not just famous musicians, but actors or, TV people. And it's not a huge, big book, but it's just recommendations. And again, albums is perhaps not so entrenched in the music world now as it was in the 80s, because you bought Echo and the Bunnymen albums, and I don't know, Rattlesnakes by Lloyd Cole and the Commotion, one of my faves. So it's a bit of a throwback again, I guess, but it's kind of nice because you've got this whole. It's a bit of a reflection on the way we see music today, which is there's a lot of choice. In the 80s, I think, or in the 90s perhaps as well, you assigned yourself to a certain style of music. And these days, it's much more wide open. I think kids growing up with music these days, because they have Spotify and YouTube and places where they can just listen to the music rather than see covers and wish they could have bought it and only know the cover of the album, like I did. I never knew what the music was like inside. Now you can just listen to the music. So, and people listen to reggae and heavy metal and hard rock and punk and dance music, and it's all mixed through each other, as witnessed by my nephews and niece. So they know a whole wide range, of different musics, and this book represents that in a kind of way, because all the albums are very, very different, very far reaching. So it sort of has a flavor of then, but also a flavor of the manner of now. So it's a kind of a nice book, and it's 1750, so it's not bad.
Thanks.
That's my recommendation. We've done it. It's 45 minutes. Matthew, did you have one last recommendation there, or did you finish all your recommendations for us?
I can give one last shout out. It's interesting if you have any folks who are Spanish and English teachers. There's a wonderful book called Fiebre Tropical. It's written from the point of view of a young immigrant from Colombia to Miami in Florida in America. And it is a fascinating plotline. The mom is planning a baptism for a kid that she lost, who had already died, but she had since become a born again. And so she's using this doll in order to baptize her kid that was already, but it's written in a very humorous and particular point of view. It's thrilling. The author's name is Juli Delgado Lepera, and
we have it. I've seen it.
Oh yeah, and it's just it's another. All of my shout outs today, except maybe one, were to, or maybe half of my shout outs today were to small presses. Nice. So this is another one that's a big, wonderful, incredible book, but with a lesser known press. So maybe they could use
a little boost.
A little boost. Yes. Thank you.
I'm going to show it. There you go. That's the book you're talking about. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Cool. So you can get that also via the shop if you want to do that. Cool. I like it. I like it. Thank you, Matthew. Iris, do you have anything else to declare?
Yes, I'm currently reading this book, which is also a summary music-y read. I'm only about 3 chapters in. They're very short chapters as well. I think it's going to be a fun read. That's all.
All right. Good summer reading.
I know. Yeah. No, we haven't had the best summer weather, so I have to make my own summer vibes here.
There you go. Well, if it's a nice summer, you read outside, and if it's crappy weather, you read inside. That's what the fun of reading is, isn't it?
Yes. A mobile hobby.
Yes, indeed. Well, I think we're going to close off. I think we've caught everything. Well, there's always a zillion more books that I could mention. There was Empire of Pain from our non-fiction department. Just quickly about the Sackler family and the fact that they developed OxyContin, if I'm saying it right.
Yes, I think you are.
Which has a sort of is the underlying the opium epidemic in the US for now, in the last 10 years, as they say on the back here. But it's about the family and the very, very rich family who had made that possible. So that was an interesting book. But anyway, I think we're going to wrap it up. Yes, no, I got one more because I have to do this because there was a customer came in today, and I thought, well, for our next season, I want to not only have ABC staff but occasional customers. That's what they call it.
Oh wow.
Customers. London opinions, and it was Douwe Dijksterhuis who recommended Hari Kunzru and White Tears, and that's actually about music again. 2 guys who start up a record company, an independent record company in New York, and they kind of fake push this song, which they say is like an old rhythm of blues song, and they say, we just made it up. And then someone comes along and says, no, that's actually real. And then this adventure starts as to how could it be? And it goes back in time, and it caught my interest as a musician. So that's called White Tears. Will also be on the list, the ABC staff picks list, which is becoming less staff picks but more picks.
Just books.
Why not? Book lovers pick. That's what it should be. So I'd like to say thank you to Matthew for turning up and talking to us and describing his book. You can find that on the website as well. And thank you, Iris, for being here. Filling in for Tim who couldn't make it this time, but and the grand finale. I feel like we should have some outgoing music, but in lieu of that, just imagine it in your head.
Just sing a song.
We're book lovers, and we can imagine
I
these
an
things.
emoticon.
In emoticon, yes, there you go. You got
Oh, you can do that. How can you?
it.
The reactions.
I want to do that too. Reactions. Oof. There it is.
Oh,
Hey.
wait, I see a little
Little popper.
Matthew's crying with laughter, I think. Oh, can I do it? I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, it's good.
There you go. Poof. There you go. I'll do that. Yes, yes, we're all happy. All right then. And the next time we're coming back is not on the end of August, but the end of September.
Yes.
We're going to be starting back with the new season 2 of the ABC staff picks.
Bigger and better.
Or whoever picks, somebody picks. So thanks for coming along. Thanks, Brett, for being here. And thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Iris. And we'll say au revoir to all the people.
Au revoir. Oh, why do we say that?
Thousand thanks to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Hang around a bit, Matthew and Iris, and we'll say goodbye to Brett, and we'll finish off the live thingy. Thank you, Brett.
Yeah.
And do that. We'll stop the recording. Oh, that's
recording
good.
stopped.
And we have to stop the. How do we stop